You're watching Fugitive Red Eye, and welcome to another movie review. Today I'll be reviewing the original 1976 The Town That Dreaded Sundown. Shout out to Dr. Wolfula for giving me this idea, albeit indirectly. You see, I saw his review of the movie, which prompted me to watch it myself, and ultimately watching it prompted me to make this review. So, The Town That Dreaded Sundown is an early slasher film. It came out after the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, as well as after the original Black Christmas, but it predates things like Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, etc. That said, going into it, don't expect it to just be like any other slasher film. There's a few things that make it better and a few things that make it worse. Let me start by saying that this movie is actually based on real events. It's actually based off a real serial killer and a real murder spree that happened in the city of Texarkana, which is between the border of Arkansas and Texas, and it took place in the 40s. The movie itself also still takes place in the 40s, to be accurate to that. The movie makes the facetious claim that only the names of the characters were changed. That's actually not true. They took quite a few liberties. It is fairly accurate, but there are quite a few things that are absolutely incorrect. But for the most part, it is a fairly accurate retelling, with liberties taken, obviously. For instance, the iconic trombone death never actually happened, but it's still an interesting thing that sets the movie apart. It's probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie. That said, The Town That Dreaded Sundown follows a town that begins to live in panic when a serial killer begins killing off young lovers in their lovers' lanes. The killer is known as the Phantom Killer, and that's also what he is known as in the real world. The thing about the Phantom Killer is he was never caught, and that's part of what makes this movie interesting. I've always been fascinated with true crime, especially when the killers were never caught. Things like the Zodiac Killer, Jack the Ripper, things like that have always interested me. When you look into movies about that kind of stuff, of course I'm going to watch them. That said, it being kind of a slasher movie I thought was kind of an interesting way to do it. But you know what? I will say the slasher scenes were actually kind of cool. I mean, the context that they are based off real murders does kind of add an extra layer to it. But if you just take them as slasher scenes, especially since they do take quite a few liberties with some of them, they're very well done. The parts where the killer is on screen are all very interesting. Those are the best parts of the movie. The problem is, the killer does not have a ton of screen time. He's in like 5 scenes. So, unfortunately, a lot of the movie doesn't have the slasher aspect going for it. But on the flip side, you also see this panic in the town, and you see all the stuff going on with that. One of the not-so-great choices they made in the movie that I thought was kind of weird was they had a comic relief character. They made one of the cops an incompetent, bumbling buffoon by the name of Sparkplug. I don't know why they chose to do that in number 1, a horror movie, and number 2, a horror movie based on a real murder spree, but it was definitely an odd choice. But I will say this for the movie. It's okay. All the scenes with the killer are really cool. I really like those scenes. And it was interesting to get a telling of a serial killer I wasn't familiar with, because I didn't know anything about the Phantom Killer until I saw Dr. Wolfula's review, again, which prompted me to buy and watch this movie. But other than the scenes with the killer, the movie's just kind of happening. It's nothing spectacular is going on. It's just kind of standard. Like, it can be kind of dull at times. Some of the panic that's ensuing in the town is definitely interesting. There's not really a main character per se. It kind of jumps around between different characters and points of view. So that lack of focus does make it so the characters maybe feel a little bit less developed. There's not really a lot of character development, but the slasher scenes do make it worth watching, in my opinion. As does the fact that it is based on real events, so it's a nice way to have a little bit of edutainment. You know, a combination of education and entertainment. It's definitely an interesting watch, and I did enjoy it. It's definitely one of the earlier slasher films, so don't expect it to be on the same quality as Friday the 13th or Halloween. But it was definitely something that I don't regret watching, and I recommend that if you're into slasher movies and you're into true crime, maybe check it out. Anyway, this has been Fugitive Red Eye. Have a good one.
Is that you, Connor? What the hell's wrong with you, boy? You try that again, and the Supreme Court of the United States ain't gonna be able to save your ass.